if you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Greetings, and welcome to the January the 18th edition of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Thank you for tuning in to today's program, and it certainly is not a mistake, and we will try our very best to give you our greatest effort. Welcome again. To get in contact with the show, you can simply dial 516-453-9921. And if you would like to make a comment or have a short, which Mr. Fuller will call the GQ, and please, ma'am, please, sir, make it short, press the number 1 button after you call that number, and you will get in line, and your call will be answered that way. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. Now, I cannot promise you that your Gmail will be read today. However, at some point in time, if it is not automatically deleted by the machine, then at some point in time it will be read. All I would ask is that you not write me a 20-page novel, because obviously it cannot be broadcast for radio. So please, ma'am, please, sir, keep it short and sweet. And lastly, you can join the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and then you want to make sure that you go to programs, and when you go to programs, you will see the, excuse me, you will see the Produce Justice icon or whatever that is up there. You just press that, and then it opens up an area where you can go into the chat room, and you can become part of the chat. And it's very, very, very good. As a matter of fact, Constructive Actions Items has been giving an update or review of last week's programs, which I appreciate. Thank you. Thank you. You know, I want to give that a chat, and they have interesting conversations in there, so govern yourselves accordingly. But again, welcome to the show, and we appreciate that. Let me say good morning to Mr. Fuller. Good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay, sounding good and sounding strong. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I'm going to change up a little bit. Let's go to the phone lines this morning, and we're going to go into Brooklyn and Toussaint. Get ready, Toussaint. Get ready to punch you up here. And there you go. Toussaint, welcome to the program. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. How you guys doing?
Good, sir.
All right. I'm just calling. My question for today, Mr. Fuller, yesterday I had an experience. For the first time, I was told that I speak of white supremacy too frequently. And I wanted to ask, basically a statement that was made was that my non-white friend doesn't want to have to think about white supremacy 24/7. And so I remember a statement that Mr. Fuller made in which he said that the white supremacists do the opposite, and they do think about white supremacy 24/7. And so I just wanted to ask, how do you go about, what is the best way to go about an interaction like that in which a non-white person or a friend is not interested in speaking about white supremacy as consistently?
Well, the answer is, and I've given this answer many times, it's the same answer, never, ever talk to anybody about something that they don't want to talk about. Just put that in your mind. Because if they don't want to talk about it, it means they're not going to. They're going to resist everything that's being said. And in counter-racist science and compensatory science and logical science, you don't do anything that doesn't work. So that's not working. I don't talk to anybody about racism. I'm talking about racism on this program because that's what the program is about. But generally speaking, I don't talk to anybody about racism until I find out what it is that the person I'm going to talk to wants to talk about. People usually want to talk about what is on their minds, not on your mind. Usually. So that's what you do. You talk about whatever that person wants to talk about. Now, another question people ask, well, suppose you want to talk to the person about racism, just like you just illustrated, but the person wants to talk about something else. Talk about the something else. That's what you do. And if that something else turns out to be a problem, which is what most black people, when they're talking, if they keep talking, they're going to talk about a problem they're having. Because black people have tons of problems on the average. So you just listen to whatever it is they're talking about. That's a problem. Because most people will talk about their problems because they want their problems solved. And so when a black person starts talking about any problem that that black person has, most likely, and if you try it, you'll probably find out, that person will start telling you about a problem that that person has, because that's what they want to talk about, and that problem will lead the conversation to a discussion of racism. Just let them keep talking. Because what the problem really is a race problem, even though that's not how it seems to them. But they'll just keep talking, and I'll give an illustration that I often give on air. Problems that they're having on the job, or problems they have getting a job. Right away, that's a race issue. If you're black, and the person keeps saying, well, they keep giving me the runaround about my promotion, or I'm trying to get the job, and, you know, a white guy that I know, I mean, and a couple of them that are in my block, I mean, they went down to that same place. In fact, they told me about, you know, that they were hiring down there. When I got down there, they gave me the runaround. And I know about that type of thing that they're hiring people for than the two guys who told me about it. And they both got jobs, and they're on a roll now, right out the gate. And I don't understand that. See what I mean? Now, he's telling you this, but he said he didn't want to talk about no race problem. All right? But in talking about his problem, it turned out to be a race problem, like most problems. Well, I'll say all problems that black people have is a race problem. Every last one of them, even though on the surface it doesn't look that way. But they might have to talk for half an hour or more before they finally tell you. I mean, you'll figure it out by asking questions. That's all you got to do is just ask questions. Well, what is the problem? That's the first obvious question. And they'll start talking about this and that and the other and whatnot. And they start talking. And the next thing you know, he's talking about, them handkerchief-head Negroes down there, I mean, you know, they think to get me fired from my good doc job. I mean, you know, and I ain't going to let them get away with that and whatnot, because I'm going to the man. See what I mean? They're already talking about the race problem, don't even know it. They're going to the man. What man? they're telling you this. After telling you 15 minutes ago they did not want to talk about the race problem. They're tired of listening to this. If they got problems of their own, they ain't got time to be trying to solve no race problem. Get out of my face with that. I'm tired. I mean, find something else to talk about. Get a life. Black people would say that. So you'll never have that problem if you don't. You talk about what the person wants to talk about, and most likely, if they just keep talking, it might be an hour or two. You can just say at a certain point, well, it sounds like to me, this problem that you say you're having, that's the biggest problem you ever had in your life, it sounds like it has something to do with the very thing that you said you didn't want to talk about. Race. Now, I'm not saying that will happen in all cases, but if you just keep talking, it's got to lead to that. All you got to do is to keep asking questions about what they want to talk about. Try that, because that's what I found out. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's how I found out what my own problems were, because I didn't want to talk about racism either. See, so I know how that works.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right, Toussaint from Brooklyn, thank you for your call, my brother. Appreciate that. You're listening to the Counter-Racist Culture with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. here on Blog Talk Radio. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, just simply call 516-453-9921 and make sure if you have a question or something to say, which Mr. Fuller entitles VGQ, just simply press the number 1 button, and then I will get noticed. A little hand will come up, and then that lets me know that you want to ask a question or you have something to say. So you can do that, and that'll be good, just as John from Houston has done. And we're getting ready to get to you, John from Houston. Let me see if I can get you in here. Okay, John, we got you in here. Okay, John, good morning.
Grand Rising, gentlemen.
There you go. All right.
I guess we could say, as I last talked to you, Mr. Bobby, what you gonna do in 2022?
Okay.
DGQ. I guess a little rhyming for you there this morning. However, in the wake of this so-called federally recognized day, which I found interesting, I think I've heard Mr. Fuller talk about whether it's holidays, holy days, there's nothing to celebrate. And I probably agree essentially with his position. If either of you had a chance to watch Women in the Movement, the actual Mamie Till Mobley situation, and why might you think that this is being proposed now leading into this alleged MLK birthday and the actual federal recognition? And I have a quick follow-up to that, Mr. Bobby, please.
Mr. Fuller?
Why is it that the Emmett Till incident is so prominent in the news? Is that the question?
Yes, sir.
Because black people decided that it would be, I think, and a lot of white people are going along with it now. So it just depends on, everything is about doing now, see, because that's where I'm saying that everything, including this program, this should be a year about that 2-letter word, do. And I'm beginning to hear more and more young people, which that's a great thing. They're saying, "Oh yeah, you all talking about what happened, and what happened this time, what happened that time, George Floyd, Emmett Till, the history of Harriet Tubman." I want to know about what to do about this problem that I got, dealing with this race problem right now. Does anybody know anything about what to do? More and more people are asking that question. And that in 2022, which is what this year is, should be what's on everybody's mind when it comes to race. I mean, you've got tons and tons and tons of documentation about slavery, and you should have more because a lot of it is false, because it doesn't tell the whole story, doesn't tell as much, in my opinion. It doesn't even scratch the surface of how awful that was, just a thing called slavery, and all the things that have happened since what they call plantation slavery on a day-to-day basis, all the different suffering that black people have gone through under the system of white supremacy. But there's plenty of documentation, and all of the documentation that hasn't been done should be done by people who do that. But the emphasis this year should be about, in answer to your question, what do you do about what's going on right now that's making a problem for each and every person on this planet, white and non-white, that has to do with race? What do you do? And every meeting that we have from now on shouldn't be any kind of, like I said, don't celebrate, educate. And the education just means you learn. And you learn for what reason? Problem solving. No matter what you're learning, you're learning how to solve problems if you're willing to learn, or that what they call learning institutions, colleges, school, elementary school. Elementary school is about what? Learning. Learning what? How to solve problems. So here in January 2022 comes down to the doing part. This D-O, two-letter word, an explosive word if you think about it. What do you do? See, we can go to a whole bunch of meetings, and, you come to the part, well, what do you do? And I was just listening to something on the radio yesterday, and this is what I heard in answer to the doing part on programs. Well, I switched the station, and somebody was saying, what do you do? And so there was a lot of talk, maybe about 15 minutes of talk back and forth. And then we got to the doing part, and it said, block the highways, because they were talking about how to get their point across. Mm-hmm. So that's what I heard. I got it written down here right in front of my eyes here. And the next thing I heard, after about a half an hour of everybody talking, call-ins and all that, somebody finally got around to, well, what do you do about it? And the answer was, after another 10 minutes of people talking, the word was what? Organize. Now, we have all heard that word over and over and over again, 1,000,000 times, if not 1,000,000,000,000 times. Organize. But see, then it comes down to a question of organize how? Organize, well, what do you mean by organize? See, we got a lot of cliche statements out here that need to be pushed aside or explained in detail once you say it. Then it says another one here. These are remarks I heard now. It takes thousands of leaders to lead millions. Now, if you hear that on the radio as what to do, that's a statement. But does that tell you what to do? Because when the person was asked, well, what do you do about it? And the answer was, it takes thousands of leaders to lead millions. That was the answer to a question about what to do about a problem. It takes thousands. See, we got to watch how we use words and whether or not our words mean anything. Because in order to get something done, you have to be precise with words. You have to say, go over to Elmira Street and talk to Mr. Brunson, and your problem is solved. Now, that's doing something, all right? But it takes thousands of leaders to lead millions. That's an answer to what you can do about your problem on the job. Okay, I'm just asking a question. I'm not criticizing it. Then another answer was given. We need a movement. They've talked for about 20 minutes. And then the person says, yeah, okay, now I heard that. I understand that. I understand what the problem is and all like that. Well, what do we do? And the answer was, we need a movement. Need a movement? You know, if somebody would ask me that, and or if I would say that, Neely Fuller, I'm on the air right now. We need a movement. That's the answer to your problem? I mean, what can you actually do with that right now in the next 15 minutes? We need a movement. That's what you came all the way across town to hear Neely Fuller say at a huge meeting hall full of people, everybody being introduced that got a whole bunch of fancy titles, all the speakers coming to the podium, and you leave there after 2 hours with, we need a movement. Not criticizing. I'm just asking a question. What does that mean? And then the last one, and then we'll move on. What to do? Say, we need something radical. I don't know. It's difficult. Now, that was the answer to a question that a person's been waiting on the phone, just like the people now waiting on this phone, for somebody to tell them what to do, I guess, if that's the question, and that's what people are calling in doing. They want to know what to do. See, I always listen when somebody would finally ask, well, what do you do? What do you do? D-O, I'm ready to do something. And the last one, before I turned the radio off, was, well, the answer to that is, we need something radical. I don't know. See, I don't know now. I mean, that's serious right there. What do you do? I don't know. I mean, that's the answer that was given. And then it says, it's difficult. Now, you've been listening to a program for about 2 hours. And so what you're going to come away with is, it's difficult. That's why I say we need a code, all right? That's what I say, that tells you what to do about everything. You don't have to have no long meetings and whatnot. I mean, everybody getting up on the stage and profiling and reading all their credentials and everybody laughing and clapping their hands and stomping on the floor and all that. The traditional way of black people have to solving every problem. It's not working. That's why we're in the shape we're in 2022.
Yes, sir. Okay, quickly, John, because we are up against time. What is your follow-up very quickly, please?
In the context of taking action, and as he asked the question, what you're going to do. If either of you gentlemen have heard them using over this weekend the infamous quote, "We're here, King Jr." I'm sure I understand what he would probably say, but will money be the issue, Mr. Bobby, or will the entire destruction, as he says in his words, replacement of the system of white supremacy? So a payoff is not going to work, if I understand. And thank you both, and have a wonderful morning.
All righty. Thank you, John. Okay. You're listening to the Counter-Racist Culture with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. here on blogtalkradio.com. And if you would like to join the conversation, you can by calling 516-453-9921. Make sure you depress the number 1 button so that you can get in line and have Mr. Fuller answer your question. Now, keep in mind, make your questions concise and clear, because as you have just seen, Mr. Fuller will take his time by giving you illustrations of the point that he's trying to make so that you can be clear and all of us can be clear who are listening. You can also contact the show by Gmail. It is 7MrBobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And it probably will not be read on today's program, but at some time I will attempt to locate it if it's not automatically deleted from the machine, and then read it, and we'll let you know the date and time that happens. And you can also go to the chat room. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and then you want to hit programs, and then the Produce Justice program will come up on there, and you hit that, and then you can join the chat room and get in there as constructive action. Constructive action items is in there. Rita 888. Good morning, Rita. We missed you last week. John Range 4041 is there. Great. Invisible Negroes in the house. Unknowns is there. JJ from England. Oh, yeah, is there. Thank you for being there. Okay, I think those are the way that you can get into the conversation. We appreciate that. Okay, here we go. This is Corey coming up. Corey in France, but he is from Milwaukee. All right, let me see if I can get you in. And give me the time over there in France, too, Corey. You're on. Go ahead, brother.
How are you both doing today?
Good. You say you're in France right now?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Very good. What time is it in France?
Right now it's 3:27 in the afternoon.
Okay, afternoon. Go ahead with your question for Mr. Fuller, and thank you for calling.
First of all, thank you for all that both of you share. It's really it's positive and uplifting. My question: do you feel that we as people, specifically non-white people or black people in the so-called Northwestern Hemisphere, can we start to gain some accomplishments in turning this system of white supremacy, getting rid of it through boycott and divestment in the 9 areas of activity? Which areas do you feel are most important for us to do as individuals, family, community, and a bigger collective?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Some people have said that it works, depending on the circumstances. And other people have said that they have tried it, and it has worked. And other people have said, depending on the circumstances, you try it and it doesn't work. So that's the answer. You try something, because no one has come up with a solution to the race problem. See, there's no experts on racism except the racists themselves. None. The racists are the only experts on racism. So when people start talking about, I'm introducing you to an expert on racism, you're going to be talking to someone who is a racist. If he's an expert, or she, or whomever, that's a racist you're going to be talking to, because there are no black people who are experts on racism. You have to be a racist to be an expert on racism. Why? Because the problem has never been solved. That's why they are successful. The racists are successful. The people who are trying to solve the problem, like Neely Fuller, we are just amateur, wannabe counter-racists, every last one of us. We're trying to figure it out, what to do, D.O. And I'm not exempt from that bunch. But you got to focus on the doing part. So in answer to the question, do boycotts work? Some of them do, some of them don't. But what I say is we need a prescription for each individual person, a code where every problem that you encounter as an individual person, don't think about what's going on with the other black people. Think about what you are doing. See, the formula is, according to what I have written, solve the problems of each individual person, and you solve the problems of all people. So, but you need a code for doing that. Each individual person has to have a code that everything that you do works for you. Works for you. May not work for the person standing next to you, even though that person is black. But it will work for you. Now, the black person standing next to you has the same problem, but the type of problem that the person has might be a different type job that he has problems with or something like that. We don't all have the same job. We're not all in the same place at the same time, but we all have problems wherever we are. So therefore, if you can solve your problem wherever you are, and the person down the block or standing next to you, or the person gets on the elevator next to you, you don't even know their name. You're not even talking to them. But they are able to solve their problem when they get up to the 5th floor. They came up there to solve a problem. And when they walk into that office on that 5th floor, you got off at the 2nd floor, they got off on the 5th. You both came in that building to solve a problem. You don't know each other. You don't even speak to each other. But you walk in, get off the elevator on the 2nd floor, go down and talk to someone about a problem that you have, and that problem is solved because you knew what to say and what not to say. That's a code. You had a code for doing what you were going to do. Now, the black person on that elevator next to you has the same code, but the problem is different. His problem was in something that's political, you might say. Your problem has something to do with a legal technicality. So you got off on the floor where people take care of legal technicalities. Up on that 5th floor, people are running for some kind of office and whatnot, and the person that went up there, the black person, he's into politics and he's running for an office. But he has a problem connected with that. But you had a code for each one. One has it in the area number 5, which is law, and the other has it in the area number 6, which is politics. I hope people who are listening understand how that works. Now, you didn't even speak to each other, but you had a counter-racist code. You were both having to deal with an aspect of the race problem. One dealing with it on the 2nd floor, another dealing with another aspect of the race problem on the 5th floor, but they both had the same code because the code covers all aspects of everything. That's what we need. That's why I'm trying to write a code book, the doing part. So both people leave. One leaves in a half an hour, another leaves in an hour and a half. That building, all right, they came in the same time. They left at different times, but both problems were solved on different floors. And the two black people didn't even know each other, didn't even speak to each other because they were thinking about their problem. But both of those people got out of that building with their problem solved. That's what you call a united independent system. All black people have problems connected with racism, but it's different times, different places, different circumstances. But if you have a guidebook or a guide of any kind, a code that covers whatever problem you encounter, all problems are solved, including that massive thing that we call the race problem. Now, I've been harping on this for about 50 years, but most black people don't even understand the concept. I mean, and even to this day, they say, well, yeah, but when do we get together? I say, when you're problem solving, you are together. Duh.
Yeah.
I scream it. I mean, I start getting emotional about it, which that's a problem, all right? When I have to be calm when I'm talking about it and say, solve the problem of each person, and you solve the problem of all persons, even though none of these people are going to meetings or anything. They're not marching in the street. They're not doing anything, but they know how to solve their individual problems every time. I mean, with precision. The white supremacists understand that. That's why just one or two of them can walk into a so-called black island nation, and they can walk in at 9 o'clock, and at 12:30 they got everybody eating out of their hand. Why? They got a code, that's why. It's called the white code, the most powerful code on earth. That's what they came there with.
Mm-hmm.
2 handbags and a code. They came there with nothing but a code and left with everything. Thousands of black people on that island. And they had them all twisted in the knots. They knew how to talk to them. They knew what to say, how to say it, and how not to talk to them. They knew how to get them laughing when they should have been crying. Okay? That's a code. You have to have a code to do that. They have had one. That white code is the most powerful thing on earth. We need one.
Yes, sir. Corey, thank you for calling in, and good travel since you're in France. Don't be a stranger. Okay. Helen B. in NYC. I don't believe we finally got to you, but we did. Good morning, Helen B.
Good morning. Greetings. How can war, counter-war, be made constructively entertaining since all areas of activity are interrelated?
Because that's the third area of activity in the textbook, entertainment. All so-called black entertainment should be geared toward problem solving. That hasn't been done. Someone once said, I don't know who said it, but I remember it. Let me write the songs for a people, and it makes no difference who writes their laws. That caught my imagination.
Hey, could you repeat that? That sounded pretty interesting.
It said, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know the exact quote, but it said, let me write the songs for a people, and it makes no difference who writes their laws. In other words, whoever writes the songs is going to have more power than the people who write the laws, because the people are going to be kind of wedded to the songs. And I thought about that, and people went marching off to battle on the basis of, from what I read in a history book, may not be true, a song called John Brown's Body. John Brown's body lies a-molding in the grave. And people went to a thing called the quote, unquote, Civil War, which is a misnomer, but they had one, and a lot of people died. But one of the songs they were singing that inspired them to go marching off. Now, these are white people killing white people over a dispute about John Brown, who was involved in the abolitionist movement. And the songs, John Brown's body lies a-molding in the grave because he got killed and got hung after trying that, and trying to do it. All right. They caught him and they hanged him. And so people got all upset about him being hanged for it. all right, trying to be an abolitionist. So they went off to war behind a song that somebody wrote. I don't even know who wrote the song, but I know those were the first words of the song. John Brown's body lies a molding in the grave. And then all during World War II, what they call World War II, they had Let's Remember Pearl Harbor. That was a song. As we go to meet the foe. And over in England, they had a song called The White Cliffs of Dover. There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover. One day, just you wait and see. There'll be love and laughter and peace ever after. One day, just you wait and see. And a lot of people sang that song, and it inspired them to fight in so-called World War II. And there are a lot of songs they call patriotic songs. The Marines have a song that they sing. The Army has a song. The caissons go rolling along. Might be something to that. If all the songs that you hear pump you up to do something, think of the effect that will have on black people. If every song that you heard was about doing something to solve a problem, that black people didn't write songs that made problems like many of us do, but songs that solve problems, maybe we would be miles ahead. And maybe we will wind up being people who love to solve problems, because that's all we hear. That's all we have heard since we were in kindergarten. Songs that inspired us to solve problems.
And well, that first quote you made, Mr. Fuller, in answering Helen B's question.
Let me write the songs for people, and it makes no difference who writes their laws.
Okay.
Or they'll get wrapped up in them songs.
Oh, yes, sir. Would that be equivalent to what Meyer Amstel Rothschild said? He said, give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes the laws. He was,
Could be. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people, the white supremacists know all this better than anybody.
Right.
I mean? They know. They know.
Right.
Like I said, everything is about what you do and say. I mean, if you go into a courtroom, there's nothing in there but chairs and tables. But the outcome of somebody's entire existence on this planet is going to be determined by what? What was said. All right? So that thing about writing songs, every song that a black person ever sang, every song that was ever written by black people for black people, just imagine if it was about problem solving. Every last one of them. We would be great problem solvers if that theory holds up. And there's plenty of reason to believe that theory does hold up.
All righty. Helen B., I know you've probably gone, but you were in the chat room. But thank you for your call. We appreciate that. And we don't have to tell you, don't be a stranger. Mr. Fuller, since you've been alluding to it practically the entire conversation, you have written a book, The United Independent Compensatory Code, Compensatory Code Concept System. Now, this book can be purchased by going through ProduceJustice.com, and there are 3 books, the 1984 edition I think you mentioned, and then the revised edition, the 2016. Briefly, can you explain why it is important to have this book or these books in one's library?
Well, I say it has to do with the doing part. Now, there's a whole lot in it, because a lot of black people don't even understand that white supremacy exists, according to me anyway, all right? That it's a system that covers all 9 areas of activity economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And what the white supremacists have done is gone all over the world and got complete control of all these 9 areas of activity of the black people and the people of color on this planet, directly, indirectly. And they did it by having a codified approach, or doing approach, what you do and what you say, because saying is a form of doing, when you interact with people of color. And about time, I just threw out a guess, really. It's not scientific at all. I say about time the average white person on the planet is about 15 to 17 years old, they pretty well got the white code down by what they call in science osmosis, meaning nobody taught them there was a white code. You know, they haven't heard this term ever, probably. But they just would go by example, watching what their parents do who are white, okay, and they say, oh, when my parents are around these dark people, they don't say the things and do the same things that they do when they're around nothing but people that look like us, white people. So they just pick up what they see all other white people doing. By the time they get to be about 17 years old, they know the white code. They say, now here come the black people. Now, you know not to say this, you know not to say that, but you do know to say this, this, and this. And you do know to do this and this and this in every area of activity, economics through war. And that's how they took over the whole world of dark-skinned people. And it's called the system of white supremacy. So I wrote a book to reveal that, first of all, because a lot of black people don't know that. They run all of black people's business. I don't care where they are on the planet. I don't care what's on the surface. They are running it. If there's anything to it to run, okay? Anything that makes sense, you better believe the white supremacists are running it if it's got anything to do with dark-skinned people, okay? The white supremacists. I'm not saying all white people, get accused of hate, okay? No. I'm not even talking about hate. I'm talking about business. And the white supremacists run everybody's business who's got color in their skin. Now, that's either true or false. But I wrote a book about what to do about it. After talking about it, I do have, at great length, show how the white supremacists operate, or I try to. It's a kind of sloppily written, my own book. I say that. I'm a long ways from being what you might call, quote, unquote, an articulate writer. No, nowhere close. I fail at that miserably. I do some pretty sloppy work, but I try to do the best that I can with what I got, which is what I hope everybody does. But it's a book that's designed to help codify what black people do so that they can counteract what the white supremacists are doing in every area of activity that makes problems for black people, or take the problems that black people already have and make them bigger, because that's what the white supremacists do. And they are very skilled at it. You can get the book by going to producejustice.com.
All right, producejustice.com.
Just go there and then follow the instructions about what the books are about and whatnot, and make your own judgment as to whether or not you think the book may be of some value to you. Because I say we need to all be writing code books. Code just means how to get something done that needs doing, to solve a problem. That's all. That's all a code book is. How to solve a problem, how to go about doing it, and how not to go about doing it. How to get the best results and how to get the worst results. Try to give examples. Right.
All right. From the Gmail, we have this from Drake. He says this, Dear Mr. Fuller, I was reminded this week of what you said about the relationship between blacks and whites always stays in the zone of tacky, trashy, and terroristic. A few years ago, you said that one of the best places to observe tacky, trashy interactions are at the office Christmas parties where the suspected white supremacist wheels out black females as the entertainment committee. Which brings me to a video on YouTube of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, a suspected white supremacist, dancing with a black female at an office Christmas party. The female, who appears to be in her 50s or 60s, appears to be grinding up on his crotch area with her bottom. In the background, you can hear suspected white supremacists laughing and egging them on. Mr. Fuller, could you please talk about how black people engaging in tacky, trashy interactions with racist man and racist woman does more harm to themselves, does not solve the race problem, and continues to strengthen the system of white supremacy? P.S. I would like someone to show you a video of that so that you can form your own opinion before you answer this email. Anyway, this is what the alleged thing that the British Prime Minister has done, and it's on video. So he's asking you, what do you think about that in terms of the trashy, tacky, and terroristic actions of this?
Ho, ho, ho. Santa Claus coming down your black chimney. Christmas parties. I've observed some of them. Office parties. Christmas office party. Code saves the doing part. Stop being the entertainment committee, black people, at these office parties. Come in, take your seat. If they say you got to have them, all right, we're going to have a Christmas party. Everybody's going to let their hair down, all right. Things that you haven't been doing, people who are walking around looking stiff all year long, now they're going to come there, and everybody's going to let their hair down and get wild in commemoration of the birth of Jesus. All right, so all you black people, you all are great entertainers. You in particular, all the black females, we know this job is very boring. It just wears you out. You got 5 babies at home. You got every type of worry you can have. You don't even have time to go to a party anywhere else. But we're going to let you have an office party here at Christmas time. The code says, I'm going to go right to the doing part. Try this next year, since you didn't do it last year. Try it this year. Christmas party. Just make up your mind. You're going in and take a seat and ask them, when is the party going to start? No. You be the queen. Everybody entertains the queen. Booty shaking and all that, and getting on top of the table and taking your clothes off and all that. And then come January, last one coming to the office because you're ashamed now. You drank too much and got a little bit too wild with your black self. Now everybody knows who you are or how you are. You were the quiet one until Christmas time. Now they got all kinds of things whispering up and down the hall about you. I'm not harping just on black females, a whole lot of black males, same thing. Black people, period. Think about it. You don't have to do it because Fuller said so, but just think about next time, hey, let somebody white get out in the middle of the floor with them funny hats on and take off their pants and all that. All the people who are in the homosexuality, come out the closet. All you white executives, get up on the table and y'all feel each other's behinds for my entertainment, for a change. Stop always looking for the black people to be the entertainment committee at these Christmas parties worldwide. It doesn't help. It doesn't improve relations. All it does is, oh, I thought that she was an intellectual type. Oh, she ain't so intellectual as she appears to be. A couple of drinks will take all of that out. Now she's showing how she really is. Oh, oh, she doesn't even wear underpants. Oh, Now you're embarrassed. Come January. Last one to come to work and got your head down because everybody took photographs of what went on. Everybody got a videotape now. All right? That's code. That's what I mean by having a code. No. No, I'm codified. If they're going to have a party, first of all, I'm going to let them know I need the day off. I need 5 babies. I got 5 babies at home, you know, or in daycare. I need a day off. I need a day of rest. I don't need to come down here and entertain nobody. Can I get the day off? No, everybody's got to show up. This is still a work day. So you show up and take up your position in a comfortable chair and wait for the show to start. Because what this is going to be, from now on, if you're black, a day of rest for you. You will be resting while somebody else is out there shaking it up and getting drunk and trying to have a hangover the next day. Just an idea.
Yes, sir.
About codification.
Okay, wow. Woo. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Fuller, for addressing Drake's question. Which brings me to this. We have come to the conclusion of the first hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. And that means that we're going to have to say goodbye to some people. But for those who will stay for the second hour, just hang on. So thank you for the first hour, people. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your questions. And be good and be safe. Follow code. Be focused. And we hope to see you next week. Now, for those who are going to hang on, that chat room is still available, the Gmail is still available, and the phone call line is still available for you to get on. We're going to take a short 10-second break, and then we're going to commence with the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. and co-host Mr. Bobby. Coming up next, right here on blogtalkradio.com. Alrighty. Good morning, and welcome to the second hour of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. here on blogtalkradio.com. To get in contact with the show, all you have to do is dial this number, 516-453-9921, and you're connected. Now, if you would like to participate in the show with a question or a short VGQ, short statement, just press the number 1 button and give your name to the call screener so that I can give you an introduction if I don't trip over your name, which I have a bad tendency to do, but I am working on that. Got to get better. You can also Gmail the show by my Gmail address, 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And please, ma'am, please, sir, do not write me a novel because I will not be able to do it. It needs to be radio edited, so make sure you do that, okay? And you can also join the chat room. All you have to do is to go to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to click on programs, and there is the Produce Justice show right there. Click that bad boy on, and a little icon will come up where you can get into the chat room and have at it. Have at it. There are a lot of people in that chat room today, and great conversations going on in there. And I'm tell you right now, them chatters are tough, well-disciplined, and well-schooled, so you may want to consider that. All righty, let's commence with the show, and we're going to go on the phone lines to the Midwest, and I believe it's going to be Leona. Leona, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Fuller, and good morning, Mr. Bobby.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Fuller, I have two short questions, and they're in reference to the Compensatory Counter-Racist Code, Revised and Expanded Edition, in the general compensatory quotations for thought, speech, and or action. One of the questions has to do with the quote on page 431, and that quote is, quote, trying to produce justice is a form of prayer, end of quote. I would like it, if you don't mind, if you could elaborate on that or talk more about what you mean when you say trying to produce justice is a form of prayer. That's one question.
Mr. Fuller? Yeah, go ahead.
See, all of these statements in the back of the book, in 2016 edition, all of these quotations are quotations I put in there mostly for people to think about and then figure out whether it will help you to do something that you're not doing that should be done. So we usually think of prayer as just being, well, I got to go to a certain place. You know, well, not everybody thinks this way, but most people on the planet think there's a certain place where you go. You know, you got to be at that place, or that's where you go when you think about prayer. Or it's a certain way that things you're supposed to be doing. Some people get on both knees. You know, you're not really praying unless you're on both knees, okay? Other people might say, no, you stand up or you go to the mountaintop and you look up at the sun, and that is the place to pray. And different religions might have different requirements for how you go about praying. You've got to light some candles. You know, if you don't have candles available, you go find some, because you can't have prayer without candles. Okay? Somebody might have that. And so I just put that statement in there for somebody to think about of any religion. Say now, when you are doing anything to help to produce justice, which means guarantee that nobody's mistreated on a job or any place else. There's a whole lot of noise going on. I mean, nobody's quiet and all like that. I mean, you're working in a factory. You can hardly hear yourself think. Not to say anything about talking. You can't hear anybody say anything. Everybody's got ear plugs on and whatnot. But you're helping somebody to do something constructive that solves a problem for that person. You're praying. I mean, it's noisy. Machines running. And it's the middle of the day. In the middle of the week. If you're a Christian, it's not Sunday. And if you're a Seventh-day Adventist, or some other religion, or religions where they have the Sunday day is Saturday. Some religions have that. They have their holy day is Saturday, not Sunday. Okay, so I've heard. So we already have these different rituals and whatnot. But I'm saying, just as a thought, people can make their own choices about everything, which is how the code book is written. You make your own choices. based on what you think. So in answer to that question, just think about, I'm going to do something that's going to help somebody who needs help the most. And that is what you call justice. Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person who needs the most help gets the most constructive help. That's the definition, the compensatory, the made-up definition for justice. But I think it will hold up. And so when you do that, you have just had prayer. You didn't have to dress up and go nowhere. You're wearing coveralls, you know. But you just went down the line in a factory and helped somebody who was having difficulty. To do something, they were going about doing it in such a way that it was becoming more and more difficult for them, and they were going to get fired if they kept doing it that way. And not only that, they might get hurt because nobody taught them how to operate this particular type of machine the way that, in the best way. And you were doing the same thing years ago when somebody told you, hey, regardless of what that textbook says about this machine, that's not the best way for you to work with it because it's a little gimmick that I discovered years ago. So that was passed on. So you passed on that information. I'm just giving this as a long-winded illustration of what I mean. So you just went down there and you told them, over all the noise. And then you showed them because they couldn't quite know what you were talking about because the machines are so noisy. But then you demonstrated. And all of a sudden you see that smile on their face. And then they started doing it. And the thing about it, they started doing it better than what you were doing when you were doing it. Because you used to work on that machine all the time. In fact, in about 15 minutes, they were doing better than you ever saw anybody do it. Okay? And they're just as joyous as they can be. And you had a prayer fulfilled. Even though you didn't realize it.
Okay. Leona, what was your second?
Wait, brother. Okay, the
sorry,
second one was on page 433. Mr. Fuller, you say avoid using so-called slang language. Now, what's the reasoning behind that? Avoid using so-called slang language.
Because it is slang language. And by not using slang language, you get in the habit of paying attention to words, which is what every black person should do, particularly dealing with the English language. Pay attention to every word that is spoken and ask questions about the meaning of words. People throw buckets of words at you all the time, and you think you know what they mean because we've gotten in the habit of that. But we're scratching our heads at the same time. So you never leave a conversation. This is a part of the code. Scratching your head. Because there's no point in having had the conversation if you leave there trying to figure out what was said. The conversation has been canceled. You didn't have a conversation. Because every conversation, you're supposed to learn something that you can use that will solve a problem. And if you leave a conversation, that you leave that conversation without having something that will help you either now or later to solve a problem, you need to go back and continue that conversation. And the way you do that is get in the habit of not using slang terms, and when other people use slang terms, because the white supremacists are experts at slang, so they'll use slangs. And then later on they'll say, oh, that's what I said, but that's not what that meant. Because, see, you can do anything with slang. All right? They'll say, well, you say, well, I thought that's what you meant. Because the dictionary say, yeah, but I wasn't using the dictionary definition. You know what I mean? Now, the white supremacists will look at Neely Fuller's word guide and say, what Neely Fuller's doing, he's using slang. And I'm saying, no. I'm talking about counter-racist language. I'm taking old words, English words, and giving them definitions that reveal truth. I hope. And I say they are compensatory definitions. So, see, I'm announcing what they are. I say these are not the usual definitions that you hear. I say because they don't do the job for me. Language is supposed to do a job for me if I'm going to use that language. It's supposed to work for me, not against me. And that gets into the word guide, which I'll talk about later on.
Yes, sir. All righty.
ProduceJustice.com.
Yes. Thank you, Leona. Thank you very much for your call. Okay, Terrence, you are going to be next if I can get this right. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, there you go, Terrence. Good morning. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Mr. Fuller. First, I want to say that it cracks me up and starts my day off when Mr. Fuller sings. That cracks me up. I really enjoy Mr. Fuller. It lets me know that you have a warm heart and a song in your heart. So thank you for that personally. I wanted to ask and encourage maybe if there's some psychiatrists or doctors that listen to the program to call in and talk about the effects of repetition on the mind and like when we hear these songs that we've been singing, how they really get into our conscience, sort of subconscious, and, you know, affect how we do things. Because I think Mr. Fuller was hitting on something. Being a musician myself, I remember songs more than I do math and other things I learned in school. I remember songs from being a kid and a child, and those things are ingrained in you. You hear them on the TV, and they really have an effect on us. And so that's just my VGQ. And that's all I had to add today.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Terrence. Appreciate that. Okay, let's see here. Marcus. Let me see if I can get you there from New York. Okay, there we go. Marcus, good morning. You're on with Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
I wanted to just have Mr. Fuller speak about or explain racial shadowboxing. Once again, I see it happening on levels that I can't even imagine anymore, given what's going on in social media and everything else within the world. So if he could just explain racial shadowboxing.
All righty. Thank you. Mr. Fuller?
The question is, I didn't get that question.
Can you explain racial shadowboxing?
Oh, racial shadowboxing. That's a term that I used in the original 1984 edition. It just means that it's a way of black people have, not all black people, but some black people have, of coping with the race issue in order to feel better about how to handle it. By not handling it at all, it's according to the way it works out. And I call it racial shadowboxing, meaning they are having problems with a white person who they think of as a racist, and they don't know what to do about the problem that they are having with this particular white person, or with white people in general in the system of white supremacy. So, racial shadowboxing is a way that many black people have of coping with the system of white supremacy, which means they will know full well that that black person is not their problem. But they'll say,
this black person, they're holding this office, or they're the foreman on this job, giving this as an illustration, and they'll say, now what we need to do, we need to get rid of all these black people who are doing all this Uncle Tommy. That's what we need to do. That'll solve the race problem. Get rid of all the Uncle Toms. And then they always have something disparaging to say about whatever black person is in what you might call a foreman position, or, you know, like they said back on the plantation, the HNIC, head Negro in charge, even though they didn't use the word Negro. They use that N-word, you know, HNIC, all right? So they always spend a lot of time talking about getting rid of that person, he or she, okay? And then everything will be all right. Now, that's the way to feel good, but it doesn't solve the problem. But you feel better when you go around telling everybody, or when the person actually, that black foreman on that job, I'm giving this as an illustration so people will know, that everybody's been talking about they need to get rid of because he's hard on black people. So we spend all of our time talking about getting rid of him or her. So one day we come in and you say, you know what? They transferred them. They ain't here no more. They're out of here. They over, you know, they're not even in the state no more. They over in another state. I mean, the company transferred them. I don't know that. I don't know whether they got a demotion or a promotion, but they're out of here. And so everybody's Jubilee time now, all right? Then they replace them with another black person. So they start what I call shadow boxing with that one. Always a whole lot. Everybody's in the office. Nobody. See, and I call it shadow boxing because what this black person is, this foreman or poor lady that everybody just can't stand and whatnot, they are just scared to death. Or even if they're not, they are pleasing the master, just like on the plantation, or just like in the death camps in so-called World War II. They had people in the death camps that went to check on other people who were in the death camps. They assigned them. Said, now, if you don't want the job, we'll give the job to somebody else and we'll shoot you right now. So take it or leave it. You got about 5 seconds to make up your mind. Otherwise, you're going to hear a pistol or Luger to your head, and you're going to be dead. So the average person says, okay, you know, you're in a prison camp, which is where black people are. So they'll just replace one with another and carry out whatever the duties are that the white supremacists say. I tell you what to tell the rest of those black people. You don't make up your mind what to do, or unless I tell you, do whatever it takes to get this job done, no matter how much pressure you have to put on them, and you'll get rewarded by me, or you'll get punished by me. Take your pick. So that's the deal all over the world here in 2022. So the code book says, I took a long way around of explaining, stop shadowboxing. If you got something to do on that job where you're complaining about what you call the Uncle Toms, everybody is Tomming who's black all over the planet 24/7, all right, in the system of white supremacy. So don't try to lean on that crutch anymore. If you got a problem on your job, the problem is the white supremacists. So go talk to them and stop boxing their shadow, which is what that black person is. That's why I made up that term. You know, you're swinging at a shadow. You're not really getting at the root of the problem. So it's just like putting a shadow on the wall. So you punching the shadow. You punching yourself out. Because the shadow, that's not the real power. That what you call that Uncle Tom, that's also you. So you're boxing with yourself. Because somebody in that place, in that same place where you work, will say that you, Tom, and by working in that place. Say, all them black people over there in that place. I used to work over there. I quit. I walked out on them. I'm homeless, but I walked out on them. Because there ain't nothing but Toms in there. And I wouldn't want to be no Tom. So now I'm homeless. And then he, while he's homeless now, watch this. He breaks off the conversation. Say, hold it just a minute, baby. I'll be right back and take you to the rest of the story. And then he runs over there and sees that white man over there and stands there. That's the white man that always gives him $1 every day. All right? When he comes out of that office building. He runs over there so he'll be the first one in line of homeless people, you know, and the guy gives him $1. Then he comes back and continues the conversation.
Oh, okay.
Now, see, he's homeless. He didn't work at that place where all these Toms are, but now he's out here soliciting $1. It's the same thing. This white man in this office building gives him $1 every day, if he happens to be close enough to give him $1. So he broke off this conversation so he could go over there and collect his $1. He might as well stayed in that place where he was making $60,000 a year.
Okay. Wow. All righty. Marcus, thank you. Thank you. Dallas, Ray. Let's see if I can get you in. There you go. Ray in Dallas. You are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Morning, sir.
Thank you. Before I start, there are few black in the known universe that I've met that has exhibited no signs of codification already pre-installed in their brain computer. Mr. Fuller, you said earlier when the question was asked about relating the area of entertainment and war, you said, let me write the songs of a people, and it doesn't matter who writes their laws. You were given that quote. Mr. Fuller, do you see how the dots can be connected with what Dr. Wilson was saying about hip-hop creativity and attempting to reach the youth?
I never heard her make that speech. See, I work around Dr. Wilson, but not as much as people think. Usually, wherever I was speaking, even when we traveled together, which we did at one time, to the same city and spoke at the same place. She would speak one night, and I would speak the next night. So I actually have heard very, very, very few of Dr. Wilson's speeches. Most people who have kept up with Dr. Wilson know more about Dr. Wilson's speeches than I do. I've heard very few of her speeches because I wasn't even present when she made them. So I don't know what she said about that. And since she's passed on, according to the code, I can't comment on what somebody else has said or didn't say, because I might say something that's not true, and that's a no-no. I might say that she said something and she's not here, because I know that when I leave here, all kinds of things are going to be said about what Neely Fuller said that Neely Fuller has never said, and the reason I know this, because I hear this now, and I'm still here. I hear people quoting me all the time, and I never said no such thing at any time. Never even crossed my mind of the things that they said Neely Fuller said. So, knowing Dr. Wilson like I do, one thing she definitely didn't like, and that's being misquoted. So I don't even tamper with that.
Okay. All righty. Ray, thank you so much for your call. And you don't have to be a stranger either. Let me take a little break here. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. here on blogtalkradio.com. Now, to get in contact with the show, you know the numbers, but I'll have to repeat it anyway. It is 516-453-9921. Make sure that you press the number 1 button and give your name to the call screener. That way you can be heard and I can hopefully pronounce your name properly. And I'm working on that part also. You can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And if you'd like, you can join the chatters in the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. And then you want to get to the shows where it says Produce Justice Show. Get into that, click that, baby, and then a little icon or a little box will come up where you can join the chat and be amongst the chatters and get into their conversation. So that is the ways that you can get in contact with the show, and we can proceed from there. Okay, here, let me get a Gmail in here. This is from Noster, says this: Dear Mr. Fuller, the church is uniquely the victim of a conspiracy of allegations and lies, and is hated by the world because it condemns everybody who is outside the one true church as heretics and infidels on the path to hell. The only thing that white supremacists and victims of white supremacy have in common is their emotional and irrational opposition to the traditional Catholic Church. George Washington owned over 300 slaves. Sadly, his slaves became angry whenever a priest visited him. Victims of oppression love to embrace the attitude of their slave master. That came from Mr. or Prater Noster. Okay, that was a VGQ. Speaking of that, let's go to Corey in El Paso. Corey, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please. Corey, going once. Do it again. Corey, are you there? Okay, you're not there. Okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do then. We're going to have to do this to you. Okay, Stan in Pennsylvania, you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good morning, gentlemen. I just wanted to say, Mr. Fuller, I was listening to your commentary about the in-job entertainment committee, and I couldn't stop laughing. I don't know how if you realize how comical you can be at times, but I do agree with what you were saying, and that brought me to a question that I had been wanting to ask you for a while. And I may be wrong about this first thing, but I believe that Dr. Frances Cress Welsing was saying that, like, when she met you, you may have been working a job of security or something like that. And if I'm wrong about that, I apologize. But the question that I had was, I noticed, like when I travel around the United States as well as the world, I see places where, it'll be just like all white, a saloon or a restaurant or something. And it's like the only black person they have working there is doing security. Or you go into an office building and there's black people doing security. And I just, I guess what I'm trying to say is I just don't like that. And I told myself that I wouldn't work a job like that. And I just wanted to get your opinion about that and how you feel. And I'd like to stay on the line to hear your response.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Mr. Fuller?
Well, when I came out of high school and I inherited a business that was failing because the whole town that I was in was failing. And from what I heard recently, it still is. But I won't go into all of that. But I started looking for a job. I wound up working. First of all, the first one I had was going back into the military, but not the same branch. I was in the Army before, and I'd been drafted and sent to the front lines immediately, right after training, where I stayed 10 months, Korea. But later on, I fell on what you call hard times, business failed, and all like that. So I wound up in the Air Force, okay? Now that's a sort of security. And then I got out of that, and I worked briefly for the post office. But I didn't work in security. I worked as a mail handler, okay, and for a brief period. And then I got a better job, and it suited my hours better because I had some things that I had to coordinate, like most people do. So I got a job in security, and that was the last job that I had. And you're correct. A lot of places, including nightclubs and whatnot, the only black person in the place is somebody who is putting the muscle on people, okay? But the type of job I had in security, I hardly even spoke to anybody, not to say anything about putting the muscle on it, because it was a building that already had so much security, a federal building, people walking around all day, I mean, with guns all over the place, because it's the place where they printed paper money. So it really, I mean, we were just there, and mostly just as almost like a courtesy service more than security. So I saw that, and I stayed on that job until I retired. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, but you happen the man and all like that. You happen the man, I don't care. If they're talking about the white supremacists, if you're black and on this planet, you got a job helping the white supremacists. I don't care whether you're a truck driver or whatever it is. Why? Because they run from top to bottom everything that black people do, including all the entertainment that we, football players and all like that. You're really, the source of your job is somebody white in the system of white supremacy. If you're running your own business like I was doing at one time, I still had the answer to the white supremacists. So I run my own business. Don't none of them white supremacists tell me what to do. The heck they don't. You're on their planet. See, that's what the code reveals. I mean, look for the evidence. Oh yes, you obey the laws of the white supremacists regardless of where you are. There's no escape from it. You have to get rid of the system of white supremacy in order to escape from it. There's nowhere to run. There's no secret island nowhere where you can do your own thing, as black people say. No, you ain't doing nothing your own, period, even when it looks like you are. The white supremacists show up. They know where that island is, where you're hiding out, you think. They know exactly where it is. They've been there 1,000 times, if not 2,000 times. Or if they've never been there, they charted it. It's on their map. All right? So anytime they show up, you're going to do what they say if you're black. And that's been proven over and over again. So,
yes.
I went through that phase early in life in answer to the question about, trying to figure out who the Tom of the week was. But I found out, the Tom of the week or the month or the year. All I got to do is look in the mirror.
Look in the mirror. All righty. Thank you, Stan. We'll leave Stan the Man. We'll leave you on there, brother. Stan the Man is on. I have a special announcement to make. This is in radio. We call this a tease, but I ain't gonna tell you yet. But I'll tell you what. You gonna like it. Well, most of you will anyway. And I'll give that to you in about. Let me see here. Maybe. See, we got what 25 minutes. I'll give it to you probably about 10 minutes. I'll give it to you then. Could I give it to you now? I sure could. But I'm going to mess with you. I'm going to tease you. Okay, this is from the Gmail. This is from Jay. Says this. Hello, Mr. Fuller. I'm rapper Big Twin from Atlanta. Mr. Fuller, has anyone in your family ever wanted you to stop talking about white supremacy? Or has any white person ever confronted you about your work speech about white supremacy? By the way, this is year 6 of listening to you. I love you. You're really inspiring to me. Thank you.
In answer to the question, I just caught the first part of the question.
Okay.
Anyone in my family?
Yes.
The answer is no, and a very logical reason. I've never talked to anybody in my family about what I do. The book or anything, never mention it. Period. Why? Because they haven't. Except one person. Yes, I just happen to think. One person. Just one. And that person agreed with what I'm doing. But even if they didn't agree, I'd still be doing it. Why? Because I say this is my assignment. And how did I come to that conclusion? By trying to get away from it. I started off trying to find a place or go and hide among some people somewhere where I didn't have to deal with racism. But in 1956 or early 57, a person overseas when I was in Japan wearing a military uniform let me know, Fuller, you might as well give up. It ain't no such place. I mean, this person said, all these places you're thinking about going or hearing about going, I know about them. I've been a lot of places. And I'm going to tell you, it ain't no place like what you are talking about looking for. Some place where you can go down and everything will be real cushy for you from now on. You're looking for an ideal situation. He said, let me tell you one blankety blank thing. You want an ideal situation, you're going to have to produce it, Fuller. In so many words, wake up and smell the coffee. Okay, now that, it hurt my feelings because when people can see through you like he did, you know, sometimes it hurts. He said, I know exactly what you're doing, you know. You know, and he talked like, hey, I know what you're doing because I've been there. All right. Yeah, you running all over. You looking for paradise on earth. So if you want a paradise, you're going to have to produce it because ain't nobody set up no paradise for you nowhere.
Nowhere. What about the second part of that question? It says, has any white person ever confronted you about your work / speech about white supremacy?
The only thing that a white person has said to me about the work that I'm doing is that 2 words, and I've heard this from several white people when I've gone on trips and made talks, just like I'm making now. And white people have come up, you know, to make a comment. They say, what you say is very interesting. Those are the 2 words that came out of what they said. They would always say, what I'm saying is very interesting. And I see them all the time I'm talking, sitting back there taking notes. And I expected that.
Yes.
Because if they're white supremacists, that's what they do. They don't say anything right away. They study you. They study everything there is about you. And it ain't going to take long before they know everything that they want to know about you that's worth knowing. Because they have access to all kinds of information about who you are and a whole lot of things you don't even know about yourself.
Yes.
If you're black and on this planet. So don't think that they don't know you.
Yes.
But in answer to the question, the remark, now, a white lady once who invited me to my house to talk about race once said, Mr. Fuller, what you're doing is spreading hate. All right? So I said, oh, now that's a serious charge. And that's not what I set out to do, spread hate. I said, now, will you tell me in detail exactly how I'm doing this? Because I want to stop doing it. I said, and since you have discovered that I'm spreading hate, I just want you to tell me how I'm doing it so I'll know what to do about it, because that's not what I'm intending to do. I intend to establish justice. All right? So there was a long pause. There was both black people and white people in that room at a white woman's house. This was years ago in this area where I am now. And she said, Mr. Fuller, I withdraw my statement. I said, thank you very much.
Let me ask you this. I've heard you say this at least on 2 occasions where I believe, and you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you mentioned that you were giving a speech and 2 white fellas from the back of some room came up.
I forgot that one, yeah. But they didn't address the race issue. This is in New York City. This is a couple of blocks from Madison Square Garden. Room mostly full of white people. Huge room. I mean, I guess it would hold 1,000 people. I mean, it was just that big, the way I remember it. And 2 white males while I was talking about white supremacy. That's what I went there. I was invited there to talk about it. So that's what I was talking about. They ran down the aisle toward me, and they yelled out, "You are homophobic." And I, it caught me, by surprise. But I beckoned for them to come down and make their case, just like I did at that white woman's house. Make your case. Oh, you're saying I'm spreading hate? Make your case. How am I doing it? Am I spreading it with a butter knife? That's what I'm thinking. Okay, that was in the case of the white woman. In the case of these 2 white males, they ran down the aisle and say, "You are homophobic." I didn't say anything about get them out of here. They're being disruptive. I said, I went according to the code. Come down and make your case. Take the podium. I'll sit down and listen. All about how I am homophobic. That's what I wanted them to do. Make their case that Neely Fuller Jr. is, quote, unquote, homophobic. All right? Make your case against Neely Fuller Jr. Before I could say anything, they scampered back up that aisle and disappeared around the corner and out of the place, I guess. I didn't get a chance to respond. They just went down and made a charge and then ran out. But the code calls me, anybody who makes any kind of charge against me, come down and make your case before everybody, me and everybody. And if I see where you're making, you substantiate your charges and all like that, I'll agree, because I got to go with the truth. See, the code says, hey, you're not exempt, Fuller, from nothing. Everybody, black or white, they're supposed to dump on you anytime they catch you doing something you shouldn't be doing. So I wanted them to make their case that I was homophobic, whatever that means. Make your case. And if it's true, I'll own up to it and say I will repent. Or I'll double down and say, you made a false charge against me. You put a label on me, like the lady said I was spreading hate. Now, I don't know whether I'm spreading hate or not, but make your case. but she chose to withdraw her statement. So that killed that case, and I went on talking about what I was talking about. I didn't stop.
Yes.
But see, the code says, well, if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, and somebody figures it out and can tell you why you shouldn't be doing it and make their case, you are supposed to agree with it if it's true and get on board with whatever they recommend that I do. Because this is not about personalities. And that even applies to Neely Fuller in everything. He ain't nobody's leader. Neely Fuller has never aspired to be nobody's leader. He ain't qualified to be one. Besides, in the system of white supremacy, all of the leaders of black people are white. And I'm making a flat statement right there. There ain't no such thing as a black leader in the system of white supremacy.
Yeah.
All of the leaders of black people in the system of white supremacy, according to the code and according to the evidence, are white. What? Logic.
Okay. There was a statement I believe you made earlier, I think in this hour, and it may be at the end of the first hour, about somebody had made a statement. I don't know if this was the statement, but it was something on this line: if a man were permitted to make all the ballots, he need not care who should make the laws of a nation, or something like that. And then I came up.
Was, if I remember it, let me write the songs for a people.
Okay.
And it makes no difference who writes their laws.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I just found that quote right here. I just found it by the name of Andrew Fletcher. He was giving an account of a person named Sir Christopher's sentiment, and he said that he believed, quote, if a man were permitted to make all of the ballots, he need not care who should make the laws of a nation.
Oh, so I never read that one, but that's basically the same type of quote. But the quote that I heard was more on the lines of what I said. So these are two people making similar quotes about the same subject. Sounds like a real valid quote too.
Yes.
What's the person's name? Because I didn't have the person's name.
I got here. This is Andrew Fletcher. This
Andrew
is attributed to
Fletcher.
the Scott Andrew Fletcher. He gave an account of a conversation he made. His well-known remark: "I knew a very wise man so much of Sir Christopher, whoever that is, statement," and then sentiment that he believed if a man, whoever Sir Christopher was, he believed if a man were permitted to make all of the ballots, he need not care who should make the laws of a nation. That was in line of the statement that I had attributed to Meyer and Rothschild, that he made the statement that if he could control the currency of a country, he could control that nation, period. Those were on the same line or similar to that quote that you had made.
Yes, and they're excellent things to think about. Think about them how, according to the code. Whether they're true or false. That's the first thing you look for. So I remember the quote that I made, because I was saying that could be true. See, anything that could be true, I like to kind of stick it in my mind. Or I like to write it down somewhere where I can find it, because I want to revisit it. All right? Because it sounds like that could be true.
Yes, and just to be on the safe side, WikiQuotes made this claim here. WikiQuotes claims that there is no way to verify by whom and when or why it was made. Well, talking about the quotes, why the quotes was made, because several people have said this, so they didn't, to keep them out of trouble and everybody else who wants to quote them or quote these people, there is no actual verification of who said what, when, and where it was said. It's just that it is out there, so everybody is absolved for that. If someone wanted to use that, you have to be clear so that you don't bring confusion into whatever the discussion may be, that a person, you or myself or anybody else, who will use this that they heard on this program, just to be clear, because you want to be clear. You don't want to show confusion, about anything like that, because people will check you. Because I meant to tell you before I give that special announcement, I was having a conversation just yesterday with this doctor of science, and that was mentioning, when you mentioned about being checked on or somebody writing down stuff and all that kind of stuff, surveillance, I call it. Yeah, they do this. They do it all of the time, whether you know it or not. Dossiers are filled up with information on you, information that you don't know, because she shared with me some information that they had on her that she didn't even know until a person had told her. Anyway, special announcement time. Here is the special announcement to all of the listeners to check this out, especially you, since you just got in here, Roland Randolph Jr. Listen to this. Mr. Neely Fuller, I was told here a few moments ago, will be on the Carl Nelson Show this Thursday, January the 20th, 2022. January the 20th, 2022. And I believe it's from 5 to 7. The radio station is WOL 1450 on the dial, on your radio dial. Mr. Fuller, would you make a comment about that?
Yes, WOL Radio 1450 AM and 95.9 FM. That's WOL Radio 1450 AM or 95.9 FM radio from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you are not putting this into your cell phone or computer now, you can always go to producejustice.com, and that announcement is on that website.
Yes.
Producejustice.com. That's also where you can get the textbooks, for those who don't already know that. But that announcement for day after tomorrow, Thursday, January the 20th, 2022, 5 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That'll be a 2-hour call-in show.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. And being interviewed by Mr. Carl Nelson.
Okay.
Myself.
All righty.
Same format as this program here.
Yes, sir. I listened to it myself, and I already have it bookmarked. I can hardly wait to listen to that show. Last question, I believe. Let me see. Look at my. Oh, nope. Here we go. Darnell, I'm sorry. Get this in. You're going to be the last question, Darnell. Here we go. Darnell from Pennsylvania. Sorry about that. Got you in, Darnell. Woo! You're in. Go ahead with Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning,
Good morning, sir.
I have just one question. My question is, what can the victims of the system of white supremacy expect in the year 2022, according to the code?
Well, I'm not a fortune teller, but it looks like it's going to be grim, not only for 2022, but for most of this decade. Now, I might not even be here for most of this decade, but I'm saying black people need to think in terms of you are prisoners of war. So I'm going to try to end this program talking about the doing part. Act like you're a prisoner of war. Now, what do prisoners of war do? They tighten their belts, for one thing, and they watch their back all the time, because it's going to get real dangerous out here, more dangerous. I mean, more black people turning on each other, which the death rate among black people is going up all over the world, of black people killing black people. the white supremacists are engineering a whole lot more of that. They're going to crank it up even more. All right? They're going to have us actually going crazy, killing each other more and more. I mean, by the bushel. That's the way I foresee that. And tighten your belts. And don't accumulate stuff. That's another thing, because you're going to have to be moving a lot. I mean, having to move is costly. And the white supremacists got that geared up. They can wipe you out just on a move, okay? I mean, by the time you get through moving, you ain't got nothing. All right, nothing to build on. I mean, they put you in a house that you thought that you owned. Next thing you know, you don't own it. You're out in the street. All your furniture's out there in the rain. So you know, but don't start accumulating stuff. You've probably got more stuff than you think that you have, or don't even know that you have. I'll put it that way. But you find out when you get ready to move it, and it winds up sometimes in the trash. A lot of things that you thought were real important when you went out buying it on an installment plan, or if they still have such a thing, or trying to pay for it over a period of time, and it winds up being thrown out. Why? Because when the movers came, they got the dates mixed up and all like that. So, hey, they moved and they set your stuff out in the rain. I mean, you know, the forecast is there wasn't going to be no rain, but then it did rain.
And then it
so there it is.
There it is.
It's been raining on all day. And then you show up that evening, and the black people, naturally, they saw, hey, well, ain't nobody around, so, you know, this saxophone is mine.
It's gone,
yeah.
Okay. Well, it looks like we've come to the end of the program, so let me do this as a reminder. Don't forget, baby, Fuller is on this Thursday. This Thursday from 5 p.m. until 7 p.m. on the Carl Nelson Show, 1450 a.m. That's WOL out of Washington, my Kathy Hughes station. One of these days I hope to get to meet Miss Kathy Hughes. And what is it, 95 point? What is it, 95.9 FM, Mr. Fuller?
95.9 FM.
FM, okay.
1450 AM.
And 1450 AM. And don't forget this. This is the third week that I will mention it, but here it's very important. Don't forget, Mr. Fuller has indicated to get a will. And you can get some information from doyourownwill.com. doyourownwill.com.
Excellent information.
Yes, make sure you do that. Well, Mr. Fuller, we've come to just about the end of the program. We got about 30 seconds. Oh, by the way, everybody, if you don't have a book, get the book by going to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com. Mr. Fuller, you got the next 30 seconds. It's yours. Go ahead.
Well, that's what I'm going to echo. Producejustice.com. And like I said, the closing thing that I'm saying is don't accumulate stuff, because you're going to be doing some moving most likely. The white supremacists all over the world are dislocating black people. They're forcing them to have to move.
All right.
Keep them moving.
All right. ProduceJustice.com.
ProduceJustice.com. That's how you get the textbook.
That's how you get the textbook. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, chatters. Thank you for all the producers and everybody that helped us sing better. We made some mistakes again today, but we'll try to get better. Hopefully, we'll see you next, or you can hear from us next week. Everybody have a good one. Thank you.